Okay, guys, we're going to get going. I'm hoping to end on time, if not even early tonight, if that's all possible. Dummerston just had a very long meeting. I think you've been meeting since 4:15, so we feel your pain, and I know you're...
We feel the pain of Brattleboro.
Yeah.
They have even, I think, as long, if not longer.
So tonight we have... I think we should try to vote on the report tonight, if we can. It would be a good thing to do. Know that we have not yet heard from the Agency of Education. They've had a very busy week, but we will here in the next couple of days. We have 2 minutes to approve. We're going to hear from the public, then we will talk about the report. I'd like us to approve the petition language, which has not yet come back from Chris Leopold, but I think it would be good to approve it. So as long as Chris, has minor edits on that petition language, we can talk about that. But as long as there are minor edits, then if you're all comfortable with us approving it as written now, this is all, of course, assuming that, if we were to move forward. All right, so, and I would like to set a draft for study committee town presentations if that's all possible, but that might be too much to do tonight. So let's go ahead and hear from the public. If there are any folks who are interested in speaking, raise your hands. Sean, there should be, if Amy's had time to grab exploding around, please write your name and the town you're from, and on that piece of paper, and when you stand up, please speak loudly and say your name and the town you're from.
Sure. Sean Murphy from Guilford. I did a little timeline in terms of, petitions, votes, and all that, counting back. So I'm from the town of Guilford, so if the potential vote was on June 28th, if you go back 38 days, kind of interesting, that's May 30th. So our town clerk obviously is not going to be open that day, so it would have to be in on Thursday, which is the 26th, which is 22 days from today. So if somebody wanted to run on the at-large position, that would mean 16 signatures would have to be, obtained in the next 22 days. But, so I just wanted to mention that just so everybody is aware of the fact that it is an extremely tight timeline for anybody that does want to run. Hopefully there'll be a ton of people that do want to run. And then the State Board of Ed's next meeting is on May 17th. So that's 14 days from today. So, everything's sort of accelerating. So that's all I wanted to say. And I did add up the number of meetings that we've had total. I haven't been to them all, but there have been 18 study committee meetings since November 12th. So, thank you for all your hard work.
So we are not imagining that we have been together often.
We will go through that. Thank you, Sean. We're, as Sharon, very intimately aware of those deadlines.
Yes, I just wanted to.
So as is Ron and Barb Narokowski, who's on the ball with this and has met with all the clerks and is in very good contact. So that's why we want to talk about the petition language tonight, because we'd like it to be available tomorrow for folks.
Well,
or based on Chris.
Maybe by Friday.
Yeah, based on Chris having to. Who else would like to speak? Jody Norman.
I came in late. Are you going to have comments at the end of the meeting?
If we have time.
Thank you.
But I would encourage you to ask your big questions now or comments. No. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I just realized tonight that there's a new Articles of Agreement. Have you explained that? I'm sorry we're late, but the school board went late.
Well, it's not a new, it's the next draft. So that's what we're talking about. We just started the meeting.
Okay, and where did this draft come from?
This is our draft with updates and suggestions from Chris Leopold. Okay. Yeah,
Well, with that in mind, I know Jefferson School Board just met today. Brattleboro met today, I believe, also. So how are they going to be able to incorporate in such a short time frame and get comments back to you, and so that you can incorporate them or decide what to do with them with the time fashion, the timeline that you have
you
designated?
can go ahead.
I think it'll be important for the study committee to see those adjustments. A lot of it was just taking what we had in context and putting it into a statute that's more appropriate for these articles. It didn't really change that much.
Oh, yes, it did.
There's a lot
So
of-
that's what the study committee should review.
My opinion.
Okay.
Okay, any more questions from you folks? All right, let's go ahead and start. Is it okay with folks if we just start doing as we've done in the past and we just go? We do
I'll
need
move the minutes of
Thank
April
you.
25th and 27th as presented.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Second. Any discussion?
So I sent them to Amy when she was going to make some adjustments, but just to let people know that she had written down that no discussion needed on several of them, like Articles 3, 4, there might 3 and 4, maybe more, several more. I highlighted 9, 10. There we go. So in any case, every one of those, I pointed out to her that I think it's better for the minutes to reflect confirmed that no further discussion was needed, because we did discuss them. Under Article 7, I asked her to add in the statement, Dave Scholes and Jill Stahl-Tyler asked that Frank look into the clarification on the Brattleboro Town School Board's option to purchase the solar array. And then, you know, I should print this out in color because I read this out. Under Article 8, yes, the last sentence.
Yeah.
And it was Brattleboro representatives noted concern that the Leadership Council have direct responsibility by a Brattleboro community member. Just want to make sure that was reflected in the minutes.
Representation, not responsibility, right?
There we go. Like I said, I highlighted them and then I printed it out so better. Article 12, I wanted to add in a sentence too. All agreed to revisit this at the next meeting with new language inserted, just to make it clear that we didn't come to an actual decision on that last time. And then my final comment was on the timeline on 5.2. The petitions available from the town clerks, I think we have to take that off because I don't think they were on 5.2. Right?
Good.
So those would be my changes, and Amy already has them.
Are you comfortable with those edits, Amy?
Yeah.
Everyone else?
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion?
One, it says agenda items for the next meeting on 4/27/16, but they are the minutes of 4/27/16. It's just a typo.
But again, my, sorry, I should preface as I did in the email, thank Amy, because they're really good minutes, and I think they show very well what we have been talking about.
Okay. Further discussion? Thank you, Amy. All those in favor of approving the minutes with the edits suggested?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're doing both minutes, right?
The motion is for
Yeah, I'm going to abstain from the meeting I wasn't there for, but vote for the ones for the meeting I was.
Which would be the same for me.
What?
The same.
Yeah, we
Maybe
should
you
split the vote.
them.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we approve the minutes of April, this last one, April 28th? 27th, with the adjustments as noted.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
We've had the discussion. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Is there, you want to do a motion?
So then, I don't think so, because I'm going to abstain from it.
Yep.
Well, anybody can do the motion. I'll move that we approve the minutes of April 25th as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that one? All those, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? I am abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
Abstain.
Abstain.
So I'll make any study committee member not there.
Thank you.
abstain. Okay.
All right, that's great, thank you, Amy. Is there any more business I need to take care of? We did get an email from Barb Wachowski, got an email on behalf of the study committee saying from Mike Hebert, hello Barb, the heading on the agenda states representing various towns. This committee does not represent Vernon. Please adjust the agenda as needed. On the advice of legal counsel, Vernon has withdrawn from the Act 46 Study Committee as we believe that the direction the committee is heading may be harmful to our town. As we do not have a feedback yet from the Agency of Ed, I would recommend, Amy and I responded to Barb when she asked us about this, that we suggest that the minutes stand and the agenda stand as they are until we hear back from the Agency of Education. Is everyone comfortable with that?
They're noted as absent.
Yeah.
At some point in the minutes,
Okay.
right?
Yeah? Okay, I just wanted to make sure everyone knew about that communication. All right, now we're going to get into the meat. Yeah? Okay, so what you're doing is you're looking at a report we have shared the May 3rd report. Why am I doing this? Okay, May 3rd report was shared with Donna Russo-Savage, as the committee asked Ron to go ahead and do. He also shared it with Chris Leopold, our legal counsel, and Chris made some suggestions which are more legal or illegal language oriented, which Ron just spoke to. So let's go over it. Shall we just skip directly to the articles?
Is there any committee member that needs a copy?
I do too.
So then I have a
And
bunch of copies for the public.
Then we also asked to have an Elmo set up, so if there's every piece of paper that needs to be shown, here's more, Chris. We can put it up on that.
Thanks, Lyle. Does that mean we need to move?
So
No, it'll be all right.
Go ahead.
So I'm going to go through the changes of May 3rd compared to the last draft April 28th. And so first page, the only difference is Matt Coombs is not listed as an alternative because he did request it. I guess he resigned, so, and not being on the board any longer, so his name is no longer there. The first 3 pages, there are no differences until you get to page 4. It's at the bottom of 4, where it has the Articles of Agreement. The last draft, we had advisory / necessary. And in this draft, Chris Leopold is recommending that we identify everybody as necessary. And so in the Articles of Agreement, the introductory paragraph, you can see there as each necessary school district. And then in Article 1, necessary forming school districts. We probably should get out to be determined, because that's something you have to decide, but his advice is you should all be necessary, because what happens is if you pick and choose advisory, it can cause quite a bit of dissension. We've always said Brattleboro needs to be necessary because of the numbers, but if we then say, well, Guilford's necessary, Putney's necessary, Vernon's not, Dummerson's not, it can be pretty divisive. What that does, though, is it avoids the second option. And what he's saying is, and Donna Russo-Savage, I think, referred him to this. At this point, if you're going forward, it's going to be on accelerated without the fallback position. So that's something that we need to consider. But that's why that language is the way it is.
Alice, if I could.
Yeah.
The question I have, when we went through this as a board, article by article, there was a comment from David on this first section that's before this articles agreement. Do you want to take them in chronological order or just at the end?
Yeah, why don't we finish this and then go back to that?
Finish.
This article, and then you're talking about something that's in the larger,
About the
The
same
cost
page.
impli- yeah.
Cost
Yeah.
implication.
okay, so let's finish what's on topic right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the key, that from the bottom of page 4 to the top of 5, we're identifying everybody as necessary, so there would be no mud option. If, let's say, a town voted no, June 28th, then you got to regroup and start thinking about alternatives, which could be a conventional, could be something else.
And he was suggesting a November vote for that.
Yeah.
Question on that though, if we're still waiting to hear on Vernon
From the
from the Agency of Ed,
Mhm.
and so I feel like if we're gonna vote, we kind of need to know, but we can't know until we get a ruling from them.
Richard?
Except that, what it sounds like for us to go to accelerated, we need all of us in, and we all have to be necessary. So whatever, in essence, whatever comes back, in order for us to go forward with accelerated, we have to go back. This is what you're telling us.
That's essentially what they're saying. Yeah.
So then that brings me to the point of
How do we vote?
then voting is not something we can do tonight. Because, well, we can vote tonight, but it's not gonna go anywhere because Vernon's not here to vote. We're saying that they're necessary. If we're saying that they're necessary, but they're not here to vote and they're gonna refuse to vote, then it can't pass and so we can't go forward.
Why does their absence and not being able to vote mean that we can't go forward? I mean, we all agreed when we came onto the study committee that we would abide by the final outcome of the study committee, regardless of our own individual perspectives. If the study committee votes to go forward.
But I'm just taking what I hear from the town of Vernon,
Yeah.
the Vernon school board members, that the town of Vernon won't have a vote.
Right.
Right, but
Which means then that we've deemed a town necessary who won't have an election to vote for it on June 20th.
That's not true.
Okay.
Based on the statute.
I guess that's my question.
46, if you're identified as necessary and you were part of the process, you do have a vote. You
so
do
the
have a vote.
townspeople of Vernon would vote on this.
But
They
just
could
part-
vote no, but it-
No, I get that they could vote no, but I'm just saying that what I'm hearing from people in Vernon is that a vote will not be conducted. That's what I've heard.
Well,
So,
that's
okay.
why we've reached out to
Yeah,
them.
all right. I just wanted some clarification on that.
Yeah,
Alice,
yeah.
as part of the process, though, doesn't that include them actually having a vote on the articles of the agreement?
If they're,
Just
No, it
throwing
doesn't.
that question
It's
out.
a majority of the-
Yeah, I know.
yeah,
It takes a majority of what? Finish with
Well, it takes a majority to,
of the committee.
what? But I don't know if that was Kim's question. What was your question?
well, part of the process is them being here to either vote yes or no on this.
To go forward for the articles of agreement.
Yes.
But that, that to me seems like the easier question, because it's a majority of the study committee.
yeah.
Right.
So if they're not here, then they're just not able to register their vote.
Right.
But you're saying that the town of Vernon, what you're hearing is that
That's what I'm hearing.
That's what Ricky's
in
here.
spite of the fact that what we're hearing from the town very clearly, from their school board and their select board, they signed it both, right? That they refuse to be a part of this, and therefore they think that they will no longer be holding a vote in their town. You're saying that somehow we can that this study
That's the
committee
indication that we're getting,
can say that they can,
but
but
they
they
don't
will
have the
have a
authority to prevent that from happening.
And so if we vote forward tonight without Vernon, we're sending it to the Vernon taxpayers if that's the legal writing that we get from.
The Agency of Education. Yeah,
Okay. That's what I wanted to clarify on, yeah.
yeah.
That if we decide as a group to move it forward tonight, then it's up to them to do with it what they're supposed to do with
No,
it.
it's not up to them.
Well, to vote or not vote. It's up to them.
No,
No.
they're going to vote.
It's-
Okay.
it's- to vote, but then
That's what I meant, okay.
Yeah, I know.
they're electric.
Okay, I'm gonna stop talking now, let's move forward.
But that was exactly my confusion. Was it up to the select board and the school board to not let the vote go forward? So that's why I wanted us to be very.
I just wanted to be, we're good.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
All right, so any thoughts, more thoughts on this, or shall we move to the next article?
Can I go back to the question about, I mean.
Or no, we're going to go back. Go ahead.
Just, has there been any other instances where towns have gone through this, where under the Articles of Agreement, where they have done a distinction between necessary and advisory? I mean, this is the advice we're getting, but has there other instances gone through?
I think they have been, yeah.
And so could you say a little bit more about why he's telling us not to proceed in that way, which would allow us to address some of these other kinds of issues?
I believe you guys heard from Donna Russo-Savage that it can be confusing for the voters, and so that's part of the consideration.
And he said, you know, how do you determine, in a district like yours, how are you going to determine who should be advisable and who should be necessary?
Yeah, it seemed like having a
And
distinction just had more questions than answers, so.
It made sense if in fact then there was going to be an alternative vote for the mud. But since there isn't, he's saying, why would you make that distinction?
But why can't there be an alternative vote for the mud? Let's go back, I just want to go back to that again.
Because in that language, a district could be advisable and vote against it, but if you still had 4 out of the 6, you could go forward. And
Well, the other key point is that all towns must vote in order for there to be a modified unified union. And the Vernon's position that they do not want to be an advisable district, that was in the memo that we had from the board. That format would allow the board to not sign the warning to vote. And the issue is none of the supervisor union districts can consider a modified union unless all districts vote. They don't all have to vote in favor, but part of the provision of Act 46 is that it essentially simultaneously addresses the issue of reconfiguring the union high school. This article that you're considering does 2 things in one stroke. It disbands the union high school and reforms it into a supervisory district. That's what you're considering now. If you consider any district advisable, that board could say we're not going to present that to the voters, and the Vernon board has made that clear that that's what they would do.
Can I ask one more question? So what then changes? So what changes if we go with everyone is necessary, it goes to the voters, a town says no, then we're back here again. What changes in terms of our ability to determine who's advisable and who's, or are we always stuck in the loop of it, everyone just having to be
The next step, if, you know, this, if you don't mind,
Go ahead, yeah.
I'm mapping out one logical next step. It would be, if it's clear that Vernon is not interested in entertaining any sort of a reconfigured supervisory union, which it appears to be the case, then the only option that Wyndham Southeast Supervisory Union has, if you want to consider the incentives and options that are provided in Act 46, Act 153, or Act 156, the only option you have is to disband the union high school. So you would have to have a vote of all 5 towns to say, either shall we simply disband the union high school, or shall we release Vernon from the union high school? But without that action, no town has an option to change its form of governance. So that's why it would be logical for this committee to move forward with the simple vote of, shall we form a supervisory district or not? You have that option. That seems to be your only option, and this is again contingent upon an opinion that we'll hear from, hopefully within a few days. Because the alternative is that if Vernon Board says we won't present a warning to our voters, then no one can move until the Union High School is disbanded, or Vernon exits the Union High School.
But we have to allow them to exit,
All
right?
5 towns have to. And what I was saying on the, the thing that's not apparent is Act 46 does the two things in one vote. Act 46, from now until July 2017, that window, that's the only timeline that this scenario is authorized in the statute. It does that in one vote. It says, as long as all 5 towns consider a modified union, then you can reconfigure. But if any necessary town votes no, then the whole thing stops. So you see we really only have one option, and the reality of that is if Vernon votes no, or any single town votes no, then you're back to where you said we would be. There is no motion going forward until we address this Union High School.
But we need to do this first. In other words, we would need to, we couldn't, it would, I got it.
Yeah. I may be jumping ahead, but can we do, playing devil's advocate, I can't see Vernon coming around anytime in the near future because they have things that they need to work through and make choices for their own communities. But would it make any sense to we have the simple vote, but then also have a second question on there, which is releasing Vernon from the supervisory union? I mean, doing it, two birds.
So that would be
with one
like the
stone.
alternative to instead of having the
Right.
mud language, that's the alternative.
Yeah, and then at least frees up the rest of the communities that are interested in proceeding, to move forward.
So Mike Hebert asked that question on Monday, and the answer was, if we reran the tape, I believe the answer was, he said he checked with Secretary of State, and so did Donna, and they both said it may be possible, but it's not recommended because of what Ron said earlier. It's so much to absorb as a citizen in that format. So the alternative, as Richard is sort of I think demonstrating, is a vote at this point reveals the community sentiment across all 5 towns, and it gives a successor study committee, if there is ever one to reform, a sense of, what is the sentiment of our region, and is there a reason to continue, or is the sentiment, overwhelmingly against any sort of change, and so on. It really informs your options and your energy, your focus, your analysis, and so on.
So the question I have when you're talking through this, you keep saying, and we're waiting for the AOE, and we will get this from Chris, and we will see this. So how do you know what you're saying right now? Chris has given us some sort of a verbal, and he's going to put it in writing?
No, the Agency of Ed is putting it in writing.
But they've given us something
Yes.
that already in
That allowed us to go forward with this draft, and then they're going to put it in writing.
Is there time?
One thing that we would suggest before we leave tonight is schedule another meeting, and we're looking at May 11th, I believe, next Wednesday. I think Chris Leopold would be able to join us at that meeting, and we would certainly have the opinion from the Agency of Ed by then.
And when you say the opinion, you mean the opinion on all of our articles of agreement or just the?
The Vernon
The
situation.
Vernon situation, but you know, Donna Russo Savage has looked at this draft, and I think she's pretty comfortable with the language in this.
The 11th? There's a weekend.
But let's not talk schedule right now. All right? Can we stay,
So Jill, you then had questions on the previous section.
No, I didn't have questions, but
well, yeah.
we had Dave Scholes, when we went through it, he had concerns. I just want to make sure we note them, that the
What page are you on?
same page,
Page 4,
4,
okay.
under cost implications. So his concern was on the $300,000 of cost reductions in special education.
Is this one?
And, well, he argued that he still doesn't really believe that one. And then he, although Frank and Ron responded that they're quite sure that that's the right number, he also wanted struck over a 5-year period homestead tax payments would result in a $2.9 million reduction. Actually, that whole paragraph he wanted struck. Reductions in homestead education tax rate would equal a reduction, and he wanted that noted. His concern was that that was not, I guess, provable, but Frank walked him through. And then also, the one, he wanted this increased student-teacher ratios and flexible staffing within 3 to 5 year period and $1 million savings. And again, Frank and Ron walked through why they feel that is a very reasonable number. So,
All right.
But we did want to
So,
bring it to everybody.
yeah, I mean, Frank talked about the tax, the unified tax document that he had shared, I think, the last 2 meetings, that shows the tax reduction by each town. And then I talked to him about, I gave him the copy of the PICUS report that we had applied to looking at this class student-teacher ratios related to classroom teachers, itinerant teachers, essentially all staff, academic support, so throughout the whole staffing list. And I think in that case, we shared with you a potential for $2 million worth of savings, and we said, we're not going to try to do that, but over a 3 to 5 year period, you know, whether it's $500,000 that Frank used for the 1-year tax demonstration, or in this document to say that we're likely to save $1 million over a 3 to 5 year period, I think it's very reasonable. So.
The other thing on that section, that same potential cost savings, we had talked about taking out the monetary value of $24,000 for the stipends and just say, because we weren't sure yet what those stipends would be. And so we
I
talked
thought we
about
left
taking
it
that out.
because of potential.
Yeah, we did.
Because of the word potential, we said let's leave it in.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
I had a comment because of Donna Russo Savage's comment about incentives as well as Rebecca Holcomb. That property tax incentives offered during the first 5 years of operation, bottom of page 3, sorry, last paragraph, last sentence, bottom of page 3. Property taxes incentives offered during the first 5 years of operation and the transition grant will offer welcome relief to our taxpayers. It's a little bit concerning that both Donna Russo Savage and Rebecca Holcomb have said that those are sort of facilitation costs and shouldn't be thought of as tax relief. And I think it's not certain, so I feel like it's going against what they're saying to say that all that money is going back to the taxpayers.
Although what we've looked at shows that it is going back to the taxpayers. Isn't that what we've been talking about?
Well,
That what
they're
we-
saying it's not.
Yeah, but they're not I mean, we've looked at the budget. I mean, is it the word transition? How do we want to do it?
Could we frame it as saying that these are transition costs that will result in relief from taxpayers during that transition period?
That sounds better.
Yeah, that's fine, because I know they didn't want us to use the word incentives.
That's right.
So what's
Yeah.
the,
They said
Secretary
don't
here.
say incentives, and so we're
Yeah.
saying incentives.
Yeah.
Well, she said she regretted that was the word that was being used.
It is in the statute.
It is in there.
I
It is
know
in the
that.
statute.
Oh, I know,
But it-
I know.
It's saying the same thing, but
What was the word?
do you,
Richard, how did you?
Did you say what you said?
That was the word.
Rewind the tape.
the transition incentive, no, they're not incentives. The transition funds offered during the transition funds offered during the first 5 years of the operation.
Or maybe even this burden on taxpayers can be lightened during the transition, in that sentence?
With the transition funds.
With yeah. I'm just looking, I just lost the line of, where does it say incentives? Yeah,
the property tax relief offered?
that's better.
Okay. So that's relief.
Oh, then you have,
Relief from the
we'll
relief
offer,
twice then.
yeah,
Will lessen.
Period.
Will lessen the burden to
on
tax.
to taxpayers
Yeah.
during the transition, yeah. That's already transition, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christina. Okay. Can we go to page 5?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask another question about Article 1, or should we save that?
No, go for it.
If, Frank, this is another question. If Vernon were to decide not to run a vote at all, and if that was held up as an appropriate legal response, does this study committee then have it in its charge to do what you suggested about having a vote then on Vernon's continuation in, it wasn't the supervisory union, but in BUHS? Does this group have the ability to make that?
My understanding is if this committee approves a report to the State Board of Ed, it's fulfilled its charge and it disbands. However, if tonight or tomorrow or next week, this committee decides not to take that action, then you might redirect your analysis, in terms of, is it in the best interest to form a union toward this alternative path, meaning you're not recommending a vote
On the document?
on the document at this time. Yeah, so that, I do believe that's the path.
Okay. Thanks, Frank. Do you want to talk us through grades to operate?
Yeah. So we're on page 5. Okay, so in the past draft, we had a lot of paragraphs. We had like 3 different paragraphs. And he essentially consolidated this to include the underlined section, the Vernon Town District send students, the historical thing about their school choice. And then later on in this section, he used our grandfathering language during the 2016-17 school year at the expense of Vernon School District, as tuition high school students shall be grandfathered. So any grades 7 through 12 students attending public school other than Brattleboro Union High School, during that, they're enrolled starting in next school year, they would be grandfathered through their graduation. So that essentially, we had put 10 years in a couple of drafts before. We talked about putting it in as just the, what is it, 6 years, whatever, grades 7 through 12, and grandfathering that. And so that's what he's done in this case.
Okay. Everyone's comfortable with that? Thank you. Keep going.
Yeah.
Article 4 is up the same.
You're missing Article 3. I think there's
Where's
a
it?
title missing.
Oh, employee contracts, collective.
Collective bargaining agreements. was
I
what
think
it
he
was.
cut that, right?
But then it talks about
Oh.
collective bargaining.
Yeah, so it's this language.
Collective bargaining.
Yeah, so it's just the title,
The
right?
title
Yeah, so we
is-
need Article 3 there.
Just the words Article 3.
Okay, slide that right on there.
And is everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, so that's the language
That's
that, the legal language for the existing agreements.
And that title is collective bargaining, is that right?
It was collective bargaining.
It was,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it was employee contracts recognition of collective bargaining agreements.
Good.
Okay, you just dropped the title. Okay.
Article 3, it actually reads, employee contracts recognition and collective bargaining, ends with that.
Everyone's okay with that? Okay, Article 4.
So that hasn't changed.
Article 5.
Plan of operation hasn't changed.
We're now on Article 6.
Where did it go?
It's on the bottom.
Oh, okay, there it is, sorry.
Yeah, the heading's on the bottom of that page 5, should be at the top. So nothing's changed, he's just kind of identified the term unified district, added fund balances. So nothing's happened with A, B, C. Under Article 7, real estate, property, and school operations, this is where we had talked about, let me just get the old one.
You have it?
Yeah. So he's saying under section A, what school districts should do is, we should have an index of identified property to list that school districts think they want to preserve to their towns. So the example is the Putney Forest. That would be on an index that relates to section A. In Brattleboro, we've got to consider things like the Crow Lot and, I don't think it's the Fort Dummer Field, I think
I thought that was a town field.
that's a town field that you use, or the high school.
The BAMS uses.
Yeah, yeah, so that's what we need to do, is look at certain properties outside of the school that are used for school use, and kind of create a list that we want to make sure that we preserve. So that would be an index to this. an appendix.
When would that, so that would be happening during the transitional year in theory?
No, I say we should do that this spring. So any, like Dummerston should think, okay, so are there, like, the ball fields?
Okay,
So, you cede them to the town, or that sort of thing.
okay. So it wouldn't be, it would just be a list on here?
We put it as an appendix, an index of
Okay.
a listing of those properties.
And what are we doing with these properties? I mean, the Putney Forest seems really clear because it's 170 acres, which is huge, and it was gifted to the school.
No, we bought it.
Oh, you bought it.
And what we're going to do is something before 2017, so it won't apply.
But like the Crow Lot is a park in the town that the Green Street School uses, and the town uses as a park, but we own as a school district, right? I mean, we're not gonna try to list out every single baseball,
No,
I'm trying to figure out what the concern is it property that if the school closes, we would be wanting the town to get back? Or is it property, because that's more like what the Crow Lot is, but the Putney Forest is different, it's more of a, we're gonna transfer this out before we join so that it's not convoluted.
Right.
Right? Aren't they two different things? Yeah?
I don't know if we need an index. I think he was suggesting that with the Putney property in mind.
Yeah.
So, and my point in that conversation was, well, we're just going to deal with it sooner rather than later. So it doesn't have to be an issue for them.
So it wouldn't even, you won't even have it by the time we get together,
Well,
by 2017, if this went through.
Right.
When this came to pass.
right.
So there seemed to be some discussion in Dummerston.
In
about
Dummerston,
fields.
there's still all field issues, I guess, and discussions, and we really have not had a fleshed out discussion as to what is the best thing for going forward and what the implications might be, because they surely want it for school use and everything else, but it's sort of been split historically. So I think they want to have the discussion, and perhaps it's something that we could resolve between, and we may decide forget it, because of income sensitivity, but we haven't had a good discussion about it, and a lot of townspeople have had concerns. So we need to have our fleshed out discussion, because I think as Putney might define themselves with their forest, the ball fields are extreme. Dummerston sports are extremely important to our little school, so I think that they consider that part of their town identity.
But again, I'm just trying to figure out what the concern is. I mean, we're joking all the time that we would log the forest. That's a concern of, like what would school districts do with the forest? But the concern for Dummerston is that if the school were no longer being used, that the town, obviously to me, it would just continue to be with the school.
A community, they need another school or something down the road, and they would use a field that's right on Route 5. I don't know.
But this is something you could probably decide within the next several months.
Yes, and probably convey it, I'm thinking. So if it doesn't have to be in the art, if there's no legal reason to have it in the articles, I don't need to have my Dummerston discussion here and flesh it out. If we can, it seems that we could transfer that within a year. That's the will of the town.
Right, so that's, my suggestion would be, unless Chris is telling us we really need this, and I don't think he is. Frank, you agree?
Pardon?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, section D, page 7.
We're not, we don't need that list of property.
No, that article and the statutes say that as of July 1st, 2017, assets of the existing district gets transferred. So your point is, if you deal with transfers before July 2017, then it's a totally non-issue. If you're concerned that a transfer might be in process, that's where you would want to have a reserve in there that says, as of July 1st, yes, we own these things, but these things are in transition, and we reserve the right to allow those transfers to be completed under the initiative.
But we don't have to name the specific things. We can say anything in process.
You could do that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So
That would be the way.
does that?
I love that. That's a great idea.
It would be better. It would be better for the for the communities to be definitive, so that there is other language that says no later than December of 2017 will any legacy issues be resolved. Which is a 6-month.
Yeah.
It says
Shall
by
we just say
10.
that?
Well, it's already a default in the law. So.
Sounds good. Yeah, I just want to finish up with Christine
It sounds good
Dummerston.
to me. I'm just not an attorney, and it seems like that's reasonable. And it seems like you could be able to do that in a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, so Inez,
It's just a technical issue, but you might want to consult with Chris. I imagine he put it in there because there might be some issue if you're representing to voters. This is our balance sheet. These are the assets of each of these towns. And then between the vote and the formation of this union, all these towns dissipate their assets. I think that's the problem. So they do need to be identified. So
we'll ask him again.
Okay.
Because we talked about it in the context of the forest, and it might not be necessary to have this language. All right, can we keep moving,
Section
guys?
D on page 7. So he consolidated that section on school closures, and same language, not to close any school within the boundaries during a five-year period. Later on, he has in here, the board shall hold 4 public hearings within a year. At least 2 of those public hearings shall be held in the community in which the school is located. So the essence of this is consolidated, but it still provides that type of public input on in the public forums on the school closure after 5 years.
Everyone, any feedback, or is everyone comfortable with this language? Okay.
So the next section, Article 8, Board of Directors composition. He just has the hybrid model in here based on the discussions that this
He seems to be leaning that way.
So we have the nine directors, 3 from Brattleboro, 1 for the designated other towns, and then 2 at large. And then on the next page is the page 8, the top is the chart with the board distinction, the numbers. Article 9 has the terms of elections. He's indicating it should be 2, 3, and 4-year terms. And in the statute, it's got to be a balanced number. So he didn't give this to me on the phone, but he said he's gonna send a chart that would have that type of balance. The way it is now, it was based on 1, 2, and 3-year terms. So this configuration, this might change a little bit, but so if you're good at puzzles, you can probably figure it out.
So the Dummerston board, in our conversation today, we had some questions amongst the board and the public. They wondered when or where the stipend amount would go in. Is that something that once a district board would form, that it figures out on its own, so it's not appropriate for the right? Okay. And then just some clarification of, there's been some back and forth. The articles of agreement are only changeable by the electorate?
Yep.
Okay, we're sure of that?
Yeah, so here's the clarification that I think Inez asked again. This is what I had passed out from January 13th. And I've got copies of this, but essentially, and you guys can pass it around. The question was, articles agreement. We are hearing that the articles can easily be changed by the board, new board. We have language to protect schools from closing, and Nikki feels it's much more involved process to change the articles. I'm hoping that they constitute a charter for the new district with very involved process to change them. And his response was Article 4, which is the school closure one at that time, would go into Article 7. It's not easy for the new board to change articles. We would need a district voters to approve it. Could put provisions of specific town votes in the transfer of property. So that's the answer right there. It's a charter change. It goes to the voters. What's also interesting, and I didn't even think I asked the question at that time, but at the bottom of this page, the question about the voting, majority vote. Some committees have had unanimous votes to move to the state board, but that a majority vote would suffice. The study committee decides this means a majority vote. And then additionally, a board voting to exit out of the study committee process. Nikki indicated, this is Nikki South, indicated that it's covered in Chapter 11 and that a board could leave, but the study committee can still keep the district as advisable district in the process. And then there is no provision for a school board to opt out of the study committee. A representative can vote against the proposal, but would still participate to represent the advisable district. So again, I don't remember asking that question, but that's kind of interesting that in January, the same type of answer.
Just to clarify, Ron, because that was my specific question. My understanding is that Chris Leopold has not given any further clarification. And so what I have here is the same email that we received in January. It is hearsay from an attorney who has put nothing in writing. He cited no statute. And there is a statute that says that they are amendable. And so I think that if you're talking about a statute that says they can be amended and hearsay in an email by you, guess what wins? The statute. It's a misrepresentation to say that these things...
Well, I disagree with your characterization of this, but what I will do is ask him to give us a statute.
Yes.
The language from the statute.
I've been asking for that since December.
And I think we have felt that this is a good enough answer.
It's not.
Clearly, that's your opinion. The study committee hasn't asked us for that, so. Can we keep going? Shall we go to Article 10, or shall we talk about Article 9? We're good? Yeah, Ricky.
Just a real quick question from what Chris said about doing the 2, 3, and 4 year, that's just until those cycles go through and then everything goes to a 3-year rotation, or does it always stay a 2, 3, and 4 year?
I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
It'd be interesting.
What is it, Richard?
Well,
Hold on.
it would move to everybody being a 4-year rotation.
Yeah.
It would be odd to have that.
That's how it's usually.
Yeah. That's the way I
So so you'd be going into a 4-year seat?
4-year seat, yeah.
That's what you think?
After you do the 2-year term, you'll be elected then to a 4-year term. Everybody would then be on revolving 4-year terms. Not the new version.
Hold on, I haven't called on you. We're listening to the committee, and then if there's any public question, it's from, I believe Jody has had her hand up. Yeah.
Doesn't it go to 3, I'm misunderstanding, doesn't it go to 3 years? The first sentence says shall be elected for 3-year terms except for those initially elected.
Yeah, I didn't change that paragraph to be consistent with what his statement was.
Oh.
So that needs revision.
So that needs to be 4 years.
Yeah, well, quite frankly, I'm gonna wait until he gives me this to plug it in. But for our purposes, it's the hybrid model. We're gonna figure out who's running when, for what terms. And he's gonna actually fill in this chart.
What was the reason for going to 4 versus 3?
He said that there's something in the statute in terms of needing to have a balanced number of representatives. So, and
You said
again,
we could do the other version, but he was recommending this due to statute.
I'm not crazy, most marriages don't last 4 years anymore, so it seems like a long, it just
seem
like
long.
running for a 4-year term is a long.
Yeah, I mean,
Not that this is
if the committee feels we go back to the 1, 2, and 3, I can tell him that. I think the question about the balance, he can adjust those to meet the statute.
I'm not running for it, I just think it's not as attractive a commitment. When you think, nobody here runs for a 4-year anything, so it seems like unrealistic.
To me, it just seemed like an easier rotation, 1, 2, 3.
So is that the will of the committee?
It is.
I'm concerned that 1 year is a short term. I've always been concerned about that.
Yeah, but that would just be for the first,
Right.
for the
It's
first
true,
year,
for
and
the
then,
first year, and then-
and then they would go into a 3-year.
Yeah.
Well, maybe if you don't like them, they're up for election the next year, as opposed to if you don't like somebody, that's a long time. It's a marriage in that sense. If you don't like somebody, it's 4 years.
What's the consensus?
But, one of the things that we've talked about before, that this is going to be a tough role for people.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the idea of adding into a tough role that you're making a 4-year commitment, I think that's a lot to ask of somebody. I can think of folks who would say, I'm interested in doing this, but not for 4 years. I'll do it for 3.
Yeah.
Mark and Ricky?
I agree. I agree with what Chris is saying, and the fact that that is a long term. I would think it discourages people from trying to come onto the board. You know, if they think, well, maybe I'd like to do it, I'll try a year. And if they like it, then they can go on. Granted, there's a learning curve in that first year, but I think it's going to be limiting the number of people who would actually apply or who want to do the job of the super board. And I also agree with you, Richard, is it's going to negate those people who could do it, so that 4 is a long commitment.
So, 3, Ricky?
Yeah.
I wouldn't go 3.
Yeah, 3. Kim? 3.
It doesn't really make a difference to me either way, 3
So
or 4.
let's do 3.
So I'll take it back to him to make that adjustment.
Okay.
I think 1, 2, 3.
I like 1, 2, 3.
No, but that's what it does. That's what it'll make it.
Jody, and then we'll move to Article 10.
I just wonder what your procedure here is tonight, because at Dummerston's meeting, the Dummerston board gave our representatives a lot of directives, and I just wonder when they're going to get a chance to say what the Dummerston board said.
Well, we're going through the articles, so they're going to, hopefully you're chiming in as we go through the articles.
Huh?
We have been.
Well, you've missed several of them. That's why I'm commenting.
Okay, well, they're the ones who are representing the town of Dummerston. All right, so Article 11?
10 just confirms that the school directors are elected on the same day that the warning article for the unification occurs. 11, again, just establishes the unified district, the operating authority.
Everyone's good with 11? I'm talking to the board. the committee right now. And any thoughts about 11?
Just reading.
Everyone needs to read it, right?
This is different than,
This we did not have, so this is.
Oh, it's just
this is a requirement.
That's why I can't find it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm looking at my old
technical
ones, it's not here. So this is something he's added.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It says that the Unified District shall develop school district policies, I've outlined it a bit there, adopt curriculum, educational programs, assessment measures. We wouldn't have to develop new ones, right?
No,
You can just
use the
reaffirm the existing.
Right. So any of the WSESU policies are accepted by the new district.
did he say why he thought this?
I think it's just needed.
I think they all have it.
They all, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, he knew going into this, there were some that we just didn't include, that he knew needed to be in there. Like 12, the forming school district ceases to exist. I think we saw that in our Article 2. The old version had something about that, but this just clarifies it in a separate article.
This also has that part that Frank was talking about of the December 31st, 2017, that
Yeah.
finish off anything.
Okay. 12, we're good?
I had a question.
Can you wait a second, 12, I'll get you after we talk about 12. Good?
Yep.
Inez?
I was just curious if Article 11, it's new, right? It's the first time I'm seeing this. Is this creating powers in the organizational meeting body that were not vested in it by statute? That's my only concern. Because my understanding is that the school districts continued to run the schools until the effective date of the merger. And my only concern about Article 11, and I need to look at it more closely, and all of you should look at it closely, and maybe Dummerston's attorney should look at it more closely, but I would have an objection to this until I had an attorney look at it. Because just reading at first glance, it sounds like it is vesting this organizational body with a lot of power before the effective date of the merger, and I don't know if that jives or not. I don't know if Chris Leopold gives you sort of explanations for the stuff that he puts in this document, but I don't know
What he's described in the past, and then this clarifies it, is once the vote goes through, if it's positive, then the new union board is authorized after like I think it's a 60-day period.
I think it's August.
To actually start the work of the new district while the current boards are still in effect. And then there's that transition, which I think is outlined in this date.
Yeah.
June 30th. July 1st, 2017.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of what I read in this, is that it's giving the authority for the unified board to start laying the procedures and
Exactly.
meeting, while the other boards are still, otherwise you would come into it behind the 8 ball.
Right.
It says right in there that it shall not be construed to limit or alter the authority and/or responsibilities of the school districts of Brattleboro, BUHS, Dummerston, Guilford, Putney, and Vernon.
I'm just concerned that because the statutes already deal, I looked at them a long time ago, and I can't remember precisely what they say, and I'm reading this for the first time, but I would be concerned if this document goes beyond what the statutes say, and I want to check that.
Well, so there's the legal references, 16 VSA 706G, and then on the next page, it's 706, I think that's I or?
J.
So it makes reference to that.
Does anyone on the committee have concerns about this?
No. But it looks like one of the initial meetings of the new district committee, the district board, is going to be to reaffirm all of the district policies that are currently in effect, and many of those are driven by state or federal statute.
Yes.
So there's not going to be an extraordinary amount of latitude going from the existing boards to the new board.
I think the good thing is we unified our policies
Years ago.
probably 5 or 6 years ago with the intent that we saw that school boards on a regular cycle were not updating their policies. So we went with the VSBA supervisory union approach, and I think it served us really well. So as Ian says, it's not like we're going to throw out the policies and make new ones. They're already in place.
And we have policy, I mean, there's a policy on how a policy is made.
Exactly.
I remember voting on that, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
There's a policy.
I remember you talking about it.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, can we move on to we're on 13.
Yeah, so this is the same.
I thought we were in 12.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think then we just did.
We're on,
No, we haven't done 12 yet.
No,
Okay.
because
So this
there's
is the
the
next-
11.
yeah.
Right.
This is the next
So,
phase
yeah.
of that process.
Yeah.
So again, it's outlined in the statute.
does this make sense to everyone?
Yes.
Okay. 13.
13 is the same as we had for the local input on policy and budget development. He's suggesting, and he's going to give us language on this, that the annual vote should be by Australian ballot. We talked about the concerns about, like the Brattleboro Union High School annual meeting that has 125 or 150 people come. He said, well, if you want more of a democratic process, then you have the Australian ballot that you're going to get many more people to vote on. So his recommendation was that, against my earlier thinking, but it makes sense. So he's going to give us some, there's just a sentence that he'll give us for that.
And so are people comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
Yeah?
Personally, it makes me sad because
Yeah.
then there is absolutely really no discussion on the floor about a school budget. And I know that's something that Dummerston has, felt strongly about.
So the important element is the pre-town meeting or the town meeting budget review, so people get all the details
Yeah.
of that.
And we talked about holding those early enough
Yeah.
to actually allow the town's input to be
Considered in the budget
considered
formation.
in the,
Right.
thank you.
So,
It's okay.
helping.
It sounded good, so.
So those budget information meetings, in theory,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Those budget information meetings, in theory, should be happening, if we're looking at a budget adoption in March, mid-March, then, those information meetings are going to be way before pre-town meeting, typically.
January.
pre-town.
Yeah, January. Yep. Yeah, we would have to move our pre-town meeting up.
Yeah, or hold information.
But like we
meetings.
talked about before too, that if you were doing it in January, that's typically when the school boards now are meeting to think about their budgets.
Right.
Right.
And I actually had a really fascinating conversation last week with a teacher at BAMS that was just thrilled with the idea of having a leadership council, and she said that she does not feel like they get, as teachers, to really come forward and say a whole lot, and she said she thought it'd be great if there was this sort of a process.
So let's talk about 15.
Yeah, so then, so 15,
So
the
can we-
title.
We can move forward, right? Mark? Yeah, we can move forward. You're good?
Yeah, please, I just had to get up and move.
Okay, yeah.
Article 15 is really on the top of 10. So it's important to read this. For each operating school building within the Unified District, the Unified District Board shall provide opportunity for local input. Structures to support, encourage, and recognize the local participation of advisory groups shall be established by the Unified District Board of School Directors on or before June 30th, 2017. Local input will be advisory. The board may create strategies for local participation at each school and may develop procedures to receive input from each school. See Appendix B for suggested procedures. So he's saying that it really should be the Unified District Board of Directors that set those procedures. And he recommended that I put Appendix B, which starts on the last two pages, page 11 and 12. Essentially, Appendix B is the detailed procedure that we've already established, that we've kind of worked on over the last couple months. So that's identical to the past versions. Anything that's in bold, not so much on page 11, but on page 12, we wanted to make sure that we had representation on UHS, BAMS, the Career Center, and EES services. So that's why that's in bold, italicized print. But essentially saying that should be procedural as opposed to having that in the particular article.
During our Brattleboro meeting, we spoke up that we really thought that the committee had spent a lot of time looking at that and that it was important to people that we felt like it should stay, right, Kim? Am I speaking for everybody here? Stay in the Articles of Agreement and not be shoved to some appendix. And the way it's stated in here, it makes it sound like the Unified Board would suddenly be able to redo that. And with all the input we've had from the communities, I don't think we want that.
Can I suggest we do something like we have a sentence about the leadership board and then see Appendix B for suggested responsibilities? Or
I think some of those responsibilities are really important.
I don't think any of it's suggested.
Okay, for essential responsibilities?
I don't know why, I agree, I don't know why it doesn't stay in the report.
For detailed responsibilities.
But
Right, you could say Appendix B for more details.
exact, can we do that?
But it needs to say that they don't get to be changed.
Right.
See, his point was that if you put it in the articles, then you have to have a charter change if you want to change any of those procedures.
Yes.
And he doesn't want to strap you as a board to do that. And quite frankly, you are the people, I mean, these people can run as well, and I'm sure there's interest. But it's this type of body that is going to be strapped, where he's saying you're better off not to be in that position.
But if the communities have spoken up so loudly and so often,
They want the board, they want the larger board to be strapped.
And especially with the outlying communities that feel like they're losing something and are losing something in this merger, to have this established in a way that does make it very difficult to change, I think is appropriate. I think that was a whole part of the goodwill, at least to Putney, was a major component for our board to sign on and say we see this as a workable future.
Not just the outlying towns.
Yeah,
No, but our Brattleboro principals were, I know.
This was one of my major concerns. Right from the beginning when we first started talking about merger, and the leadership councils really answered that, and I don't like the idea of not so much watering them down in practice, but making their role optional. I don't like that at all.
So how can we address that? Can we add a sentence?
the way it was.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Exactly the way it was.
Yep.
So what does everyone think?
Agreed.
Me too.
I think that Chris you'll want Chris to provide advice on the legal viability of this. In a brief conversation, he indicated that there are some legal problems with the authority that's extended to this body that infringes on the statutory authority of the board. So if you want to go in that direction, I would just say that it's likely that I'm sure Ron can ask him to provide that work, but I would just anticipate probably some changes just to comply with the statute.
And I think what you're saying, Frank, is actually really interesting because the first part of what you said was the concern of giving it so much authority. And I think that's exactly what the communities have said. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of ways, I think that's what the study committee has struggled with, is to take what people say is working well in the supervisory union and not water it down too much, and still be able to give each community that feeling that we still have some some say a local control at that level. So I feel like we're all saying, yeah, let's push for as much as we can get legally, and they can tell us what's not gonna fly, but that's the will of these communities and these people sitting here.
So I do think we should put the same language in and present that language to the Board of Ed.
Agreed.
And I'll
Does
ask
that make
him.
sense?
Yes.
I'll ask him if there's something in the Appendix B, that first paragraph, that needs to be modified. And obviously we'll see that.
Okay, Amy?
Yep.
Yeah, Chris?
Yep.
Everyone on that side? We're good?
Dummerston Board just wanted, you know, the Leadership Council's roles to be, not may include, but will include, or include, you know, to again, speaks to what everybody else is just confirming, that we want them to be, have some teeth.
There's also, there's a not entirely understanding the wording of the very last, in bold, page 12, about, where it says, in addition, school sending students to BAMS will appoint one member to the BAMS Leadership Council and the Wyndham Career Center Advisory Board and the Early Education Services Policy Council. So Guilford and Brattleboro would send representatives for the EES and Wyndham Regional Center, but Dummerston, Putney. Do you see how that sentence reads?
It's the very last paragraph?
The very last sentence of the very last paragraph. If you're a school that sends students to BAMS, you appoint one member to the BAMS Council, and then you appoint one member, okay, that makes sense. But then you are the ones that appoint somebody to the Wyndham Regional Career Center Advisory Board and the EES Policy Council.
The intent is those schools, UHS, anybody from any of the district board members would be, could be a representative to BUHS because you all send kids there.
Yep.
With BAMS, the distinction is it would not include Dummerston or Putney because you have your
I'm down
study
with that.
group right there.
I'm down with that.
And then the Regional Career Center would include all districts.
That's not how that sentence.
I know,
Okay.
that's the intent.
Okay, that's what I
And
thought.
then early education services would include all.
Right, so that's not how that reads.
So should you put those after BUHS and then do Brattleboro Area
In
Middle
addition,
School?
just do that
Its own
last.
sentence.
And why does the policy council take everybody? Does everybody send
It's the county,
BES?
It's county.
it's county one.
Good. That's good, then when we're looking for community members currently on EES, all of
Yeah.
you could be out there thinking of that. We're constantly looking for community reps. I didn't realize it could be everybody.
My other question is the paragraph right above the italicized last one. We had talked a couple meetings ago about the students being elected to the leadership council, and I had drafted up a short revised sentence and sent that along and made the, I sent it to both of you.
I have it.
Yeah, okay.
I think it was from discussion about, what I recall is almost as appropriate in terms of a student representative.
Right, because we were concerned at the K through 6 schools, is it really appropriate to require a 6th grader to serve on a board?
Do you have that language?
I have it here.
You do?
And so we were thinking, in the revised language, the intent was to
Okay, I
say,
get
where it's appropriate to pull in a student, that the principal would do that, but that it's not mandatory that a student sit on the.
Let me read this.
Okay.
And then we can-
Yeah, because-
Additionally, the school principal
Yeah.
may select a student representative for participation as appropriate or necessary or as topics dictate. So we could change that.
Obviously, we didn't want a student EES. They're much too young to be on the board.
Although they would have fascinating.
They would keep us highly entertained, but it would be
You're
not
not giving them
appropriate.
credit.
More green practice.
All right, so if people like that, I'll incorporate that in.
Yeah.
That's great.
Another question from Dummerston is, so we've taken out the language that the chair is the appointed person, and there's no, it's just going to go by normal election, who's the chair and the vice chair. Do we need to put language in for that, or is that just?
I think if you don't say it, it's normal, right? It's only if you say it that it says that it has to be a different way.
Okay, anything else on the leadership councils?
So we go back to.
Can I, sorry, on the leadership council, I was thinking of what Tom had written about the procedures and some of the concerns of how teachers are hired, or principals, or staff in general.
Yeah.
And I realized, thinking about it, that I wasn't aware of that when I first came on board. There was discussion that you had, Ron, last time with Mr. Miller as well, about that it had changed since he had been on the board. I wondered if a simple sentence stating somehow that we follow an established procedure, maybe that could be Appendix A. I realized in thinking about it this last week that there's actually a very inclusive, well thought out process for when I've sat on the committees to hire teachers that are going between schools. I've never sat on just one teacher hiring committee for, for somebody that's just in one school, but for like a music teacher that goes between 3 schools for the band, or a principal. And I've sat on as well for the principal of a school as a parent representative. And it's a very well thought out process that perhaps if we put it in the appendix and people could read it, that it might alleviate some of the fears that people have that there's no community input.
Well, statute might change.
But you would change them to the statute, right?
Where would you put this?
An appendix? You must have it written out. I mean, you follow the same thing all the time.
That's him.
Procedure.
It's his, he does
I mean,
a
it was
very
based
good
on
job hiring.
I don't know
So,
how much of it's
you know-
statute and how much is what we do as a tradition here,
There
or
might
your.
be some place in here where,
I
I
have
thought I
it.
read about, so, let's see, is it, so under Article 3, which is not identified as Article 3, page 5, the one on collective bargaining and contract agreements. So to some extent, further in this paragraph, board will comply with pre-existing master agreement pursuant to chapter 16 VSA, chapter 53, subsection 3.
I don't think it's so much there, Ron, as the leadership council type area. It's about what the local boards and
So
local
maybe it's,
communities get to have for say in hiring staff at their own communities, that it's not
Yeah, okay,
just
so-
massively controlled by people so far removed.
Yeah, so there's a section in those bullets for hiring. Okay, so it's on bottom of 11, serve on hiring committees for school staff and faculty. You could say something about following the statute.
Statutes and established protocols.
No, that's good. Yeah.
Historic.
And establish protocols at the time of the merger as opposed to, or prior to the merger? Because I think that's the
Well, I
intent.
think Ron said the statutes, and then I said and established protocols, only because those could change with statute. As statute changes, the protocol is going to change. So you don't want to do it at the time of the merger, but so that it has more ability to morph if the statute changes, or if just human resources kinds of procedures change.
Could we say then resulting protocols for statute and something like that, that doesn't, the established is right, where does that reside? Where is
Because I
that?
don't want
Resulting
Protocols.
Okay.
Because it could be the board would say, okay, we're establishing the protocols, and then we decide
Yeah.
everything. So just to make it a little bit more clear that our intent was kind of what we're doing now as allowed by statute, as it changes over time.
Okay, so we'll put that in.
16.
All right, so 16, that's the, this 16 and 17 was the whole school choice transfer setup that we plugged in. And what he pointed out to us is that that really applied to inter-district transfers, like from SU to SU. And what we're trying to do here is within the district, intra. So in his italicized information here, you can see what he's saying here. He says below Article 16, but the number changed to Article 17. So it's just using the same concept to allow students to transfer within the district schools, like we had put in last time. But it really applies more to within the district. The thing that I think is missing from this one is the capacity language, which I'm going to add from the April 28th version on page 14, and I'll read it to you. The capacity of a school to receive students from other schools may include limits based on the capacity of programs, class, grades, school building, or measurable adverse financial impact. I didn't see that in this section. If you find it, let me know. But I don't think it's there.
I think it needs to go back in.
Yeah, no, I do too.
So, adjust school attendance boundary lines. That's new.
Where are you?
On Article 16, the last
sentence.
bolded sentence, I don't recollect seeing school attendance boundary lines being
It's
adjusted.
new and slightly
So
scary.
didn't we suggest it though?
Never
Well,
discussed.
what that means is you are able to say a student in Dummerston can go to a different school. That's the implication of
I
that.
don't think that's.
Yeah.
I think it's saying that, because originally our original language on, the language of April 28th was that you attend the school in the district of residence, something to that effect. Unless blah, 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 blah. And so now the board can adjust school attendance boundary lines, and it doesn't,
And school configuration.
The situation of the individual student that is closer is covered higher up in that, where it's, the board may adjust student enrollment based upon individual student circumstances.
Why don't we just strike this after July 1st, the board will
Yeah.
have the authority to adjust school attendance boundary
Yeah.
lines and
I
school.
don't know. I'd want to know from him why it's in here.
Well,
Why don't we, why don't we strike it and then ask him whether we need to, for some legal reason, put it back in?
Because that,
It makes me think that, you know, if I was a resident of Putney, that I could lose my 7th and 8th grade,
Yes,
like that.
exactly.
Or that
You
part of
bet.
Putney would then go to Dummerston.
Yes.
Without,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
or vice versa.
So does
That
that
was
work?
my first thought. when I
That
read
works for everyone? Okay. Okay, are we good on 16? Can we move to 17? All right, school choice.
So that's just the school choice language for within your district to be able to take and accept students. And again, I'm going to add the capacity language.
Anything else? Okay, 18.
That's the community use.
I thought we had talked about that being more in the hands of the leadership councils rather than the unified district.
Did we change language?
Well, see, what used to be in here is the policy. I just used the sample policy from UHS facility use, which most schools, districts have. And this kind of,
That is right, though. Can we just add a sentence at the end?
It just reading this, it sounds like the district board can decide that they want to use Guilford School for whatever they want and whenever they want, and not necessarily go through us.
I thought we had talked about adding the use of schools into the list of
The leadership
the
council.
leadership council
Yeah.
authorities.
And did we do?
I think we did.
Let's,
So what does this article have to be in here for at all?
well, we had originally put it in because there was concern in communities that, you know, cultural use of property, that it would be
So we
continue as it has.
So we've addressed that concern in the leadership council? No. If we don't have something in here, we don't address that concern.
Right.
I liked what I summarized when I talked to the Brattleboro Community Forum, where I just said, the intent of this, I said the wording's coming, but the intent is that communities would continue to use their schools.
Yeah. I think that's what this says, doesn't it?
Well, no, the way it says it here, it sounds like the unified board owns everything and we're first.
They decide
as a
what-
board,
right.
and then everybody else has to figure out what they're gonna do. It makes the unified board sound really big and evil.
So do we want to adjust this language, or do we want to go back to something we had?
Well, we need to give the local communities their control of their buildings and facilities, like it is now. So, how we do
The only
that.
consideration I can think of is if there's some big unified need that clearly, the only place we can hold is at Dummerston. Say we have some big need for a huge fundraiser for the whole school district, and we can only hold it in Dummerston's field.
So
But even then, you would want to go back to the leadership council and talk to them.
Right.
It's not like
Or
you're
the
gonna decide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the last sentence, the unified district will encourage appropriate use of buildings by students and community according to the policies and procedures of the unified district. So as it is right now, the supervisory union policy has the school facility use policy. And that's what you need to adopt. Because we have policy in place, and that's what this is really, in my mind, it's saying according to the policies and procedures of the unified district. So just as you adopted the curriculum and all of the other SU policies, you'd be doing the same thing with facility use.
Then why do we need a specific thing to call it out?
Because I think the concern was that the local communities want to make sure they can continue using the school. Nobody really cares.
Yeah, no, and I think if you look back, when I look back on my April 6th, I think we started, maybe I didn't at that point. Yeah. So on page 12, doesn't matter. On Article 14 at that time, community use of schools, we had one of the policies that we use now. Yeah, high school.
Well, why don't
Just
we-
as a sample policy. And I think that's what, in my mind, that's what this is saying, that based on the policies that you have.
Rich, what do you got for wordsmithing over there?
Well, actually, I have a thought
Yeah.
on that. What if we just strike that first sentence, which,
Yep.
and add at the end, as overseen by the building administrator and school leadership council.
Excellent.
Bravo.
There we go.
So what are we striking?
The first
First
sentence.
First sentence away.
Of Article 18.
Yep.
And add in at the end, and local leadership council.
Yep. At the end.
Okay, so it would read, the unified district will encourage appropriate use of buildings by students and community according to the policy and procedures of the unified district as overseen by the building administrator and local leadership councils.
Well, that sort of adds rationale then to the listing of all the school properties and stuff being used. So that the control of the use would be retained in the individual districts.
So you're suggesting that we make a list for each one of the districts currently?
Well, it was suggested now. Yeah, we might as well do it now. That was brought up when we were, I think, talking about Article 7, real estate property and such like that. And we were going to defer, but maybe it's not such a good idea to defer.
We can do it.
Just a thought, sure.
Okay, so we've gone through all the articles.
Can we go back to one?
Yep, yeah, so now,
Article 7, Section D is the school closure. As with the Leadership Council, I feel like that section was summarized perhaps a bit too much. I think we put a lot into that page and a half prior. And specifically what I see missing out of the new one, now that I have read it thoroughly, is reference to a full 1 year of study. That seems to have come out, and I think that that was a really important notation.
So that was the intent of the full public hearing, so I think it makes it clearer if you add that.
If you add the full year of study, and then maybe it could be added as another appendix similar to the Leadership Council, but we had spelled out some very specific criteria or impacts that would need to be studied to come to the decision that I think were important. For example, the benefit of the school's presence in a community, the equity to be gained in the decision, the implication to the community, the financial implications, cost, like.
so we could put that in at the end.
Yeah, just
Okay.
some, see appendix.
Yes.
Z.
For consideration.
Where was the reference to the 1 year study?
It's not in the new one, in the.
No, in the old one.
In the old one, Article 7, page 7, I think, at least in the one I'm looking at. There's one single, one sentence paragraph that says school closure considerations would have to go through 1 year of study.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then after that, it says during that time, colon, and it bullets, and I like those bullets.
Well, that, again, those would be in the procedures.
Yeah.
But that going into the page 8, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely the 1 year. I would still like to see an appendix with those bullets.
Procedures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll put these all in the appendix.
Thank you, that's, glad you brought that
So
up.
what this goes into Article,
It's now Article 7D.
Yes. Okay, any,
The other comment
Yeah.
that I had, sorry, is when we were talking about the intra transfers, before we had put in a limit, and in here we don't talk about any limits. Do we need to do that?
He was gonna put that sentence back in, weren't you, Ron?
About the 5%?
yeah.
With the 5% out, but not the 5%?
Yeah, I changed it the way you had suggested.
Okay.
But then I added that capacity
Okay,
language.
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you.
okay, any other articles we want to go back to?
I have a question on the Article 16, on the school choice transfer program. In Chris Leopold's italicized comment. I'm concerned that the Article 13 provisions raise several legal issues, including the lack of providing transportation services to students.
That was the old one.
Okay.
So I think in our intent is that, this came up, I think, in Brattleboro, that if somebody from Brattleboro was going to Dummerston, it's going to be bus transportation. And just like we have buses going throughout the whole district, either for special ed or for some programs, we would need to cover transportation.
So we do need to, okay. We just told our board the opposite, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, as an example, we have buses going to Putney and Dummerston, and they come through, and the timing would be that they would drop at an elementary before they go to the high school, and reverse that. That happens at Guilford right now, so. In the old language, again, it was out of district, and so we would not be providing transportation. That's what he was concerned about, that, you can't legally set that up. to support that.
So is that true regardless of the reason? So the minute is that true if someone were to decide they wanted to, for whatever reason, go from, who were a Putney resident, to go to Guilford, and Guilford was willing to receive, if it was their choice to do that, we're still obligated in that instance to have transportation?
Under this new
Yes.
system, we would.
Okay.
Yeah. And we can do it.
Okay. Any more questions? Yes? So which articles are we, if we were to vote on this tonight, which I think we want to do, would we pull out some articles? Because we want Chris to give us feedback on some, correct?
Yes. And then I got.
Don't we have a lot of changes?
No, I mean, he's making the changes, but there are one or two that we want feedback on.
There were
right?
two that we specifically mentioned that we needed feedback on.
Yep.
The 7th, or is it 8th, is the councils.
11.
Because we cut some language, well, I'll go back to
Yeah,
that. So it's Article 9, right?
9.
It's the years.
Yeah, the years for the 4 versus 3.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's, hold on, Richard, there's article, the first one, right, about, well, is that, were we gonna hold off on that?
What one?
If necessary,
I think we're gonna get
a legal opinion?
opinion on that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about what Frank said for a lot of the meeting, which is that if we vote on this and we make a recommendation to move this forward, then we have in some ways made a decision to go forward. And I worry that if we were, as much as I was hoping that meeting 18 would be the charm, or if this is 18 or 19, I'm not sure what number we're on now, that we would move forward on this. I worry that if we do that, and we are then unable to make a decision based upon what might happen with with Vernon. And if that then prevents us from going back and having a conversation about how we might proceed given Vernon's situation, then I would want not to vote now.
Well, the committee certainly would be engaged all the way through the state board's review and the, whatever request for revision or clarification, all the way through a public vote.
But at what point do we then lose our ability, if, what you said at the beginning part, when do we lose our ability to go back and say, look, we're actually going to make a motion to disband Brattleboro Union to address?
I think you'd have that information by next week to be able to meet again and
Rich
say,
is saying
look.
My comment is if we vote, does that prevent us
No,
from doing
what
that?
I'm saying is, then if we have a different opinion, and then we'd say, this path isn't gonna work.
Okay.
And the state board hasn't even reviewed this yet. It's not like we're bound to that.
Okay.
So then at the next meeting, we'd be saying, look, this doesn't work, so let's look at the alternative.
So we could pull back and
Yeah,
choose the
absolutely.
And
different.
Chris has given us that.
And Donna
advice.
Russo Savage has said that.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned this earlier, that what we provide the AOA at this point, there's a back and forth, and we're starting to get that. And so I'm not that concerned about some of the changes that we're asking him to make, because I think Donna's gonna say, okay, so this is legitimate, this you can't, and we have to come back and look at this. That process is gonna continue.
But
When does it stop?
and when does-
May 17th.
May 17th, which year?
But at what point does the study committee make a vote to go, for example, with an accelerated merger? When is that the vote we're talking about right now? Because it strikes me if we make that vote, then we're bound to this back and forth, but we're bound to that accelerated merger. Whereas if we hold off on the vote, and if there are other circumstances that we need to address before we do that, that's my only fear.
And if it's only possibly holding off, if we're talking about a meeting a week from today, we should have those answers by then, and then there's no uncertainty in what we're voting on.
Seems to me the only concern would be if the AOE will invest in the review time that's required to put something in front of the state board if you haven't really made a commitment.
But here's the reality too. We have a very unique situation with Vernon. And I think the Board of Education has been aware of that all along
Yeah,
and has been slow to give us answers as to how exactly that impacts what we can do and can't do.
Yeah,
And slow to give Vernon answers.
Well, couldn't we vote on this based, put in the motion that specific language?
May I offer an alternative?
Subject.
The AOE's determination.
Yeah.
May I offer an alternative to voting on the whole ball of wax tonight? Is that let the minutes reflect those articles that we are all in consensus on? And there's some that need to be language added and detracted, and some we need clarification on. And then at our next meeting, we simply add those to the list of articles that we have agreed upon tonight, and pass the whole ball of wax.
I would recognize.
The only
I'm
problem
not
is-
going to recognize the floor until the committee has talked
The
to
only
this.
problem I'm seeing too is that
Before you vote?
if we hold off on this, on voting tonight, which I'm liking the idea of and personally, but if we do that, then what was pointed out at the beginning of our meeting as far as getting things to clerks so people can do all that, then it shortens that time frame too for people too. So I just want us to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, to the point of the timeline, I feel that the amount that we need to do with our communities as individuals that may be running, getting our petitions done, if we have multiple people running for the same seats, logically there should be some campaigning done. And on top of all that, trying to communicate this to all of our communities. My feeling is that, we've done some good work here, but I think the timeline is already too short, realistically, to proceed. Especially with still having 2 or 3 legal questions that we're waiting on. So that's my feeling on this.
I personally think we should vote tonight. I think it's pretty clear what we need answered. I don't actually think we have that many legal questions at this stage. I think it's important for us to make a decision that we would like to see this, those of us who would like to see this put in front of the voters need to say that. And we need to keep if we want to make this happen, I think we need to keep the process moving. We do have enough time. We're very tight on time, but we do have enough time. Chris reassured me that articles can change up to the very, be tweaked up to the very last minute. Our group is meeting again next week. I think it's clear what we don't yet feel confident about and what we do. And I think we need to allow people the information that we are confident about this or we are not.
Is that what is really to be gained by voting now? So next week is just to give them the impression that we're moving? 'Cause I don't think I'm clear on what we gain by voting tonight.
I think we gain by having the Agency of Education take us seriously. I think we need to vote on this. I think Donna Russo-Savage needs to start looking at this even more seriously, and they need to transition it to the Board of Ed. We need to be, I do think we need to be respectful of their timing.
Even though we're still waiting for more information from
They're
them.
fully aware of the
They
time crunch we
advised
are
us to
in.
go forward with this.
They did, knowing that there were some changes that might need to be made.
But if Vernon comes back, if Vernon's position is upheld, and then none of us can vote, then are we then stuck with
No.
that we are just...
Then next week, I'd be saying, you go to phase 2, which is you get the warning article where Vernon is allowed out of the Union High School District. That allows us, the rest of the boys. to
And
go
are we,
forward.
I just want to be clear, because I'm thinking about what and we are allowed to do that even after we have voted to submit a report.
Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
They are very
It wouldn't be a
aware,
different
let me
group.
repeat
Then I'm-
this,
then I'm
they are
fine.
very aware about the awkward situation this committee finds itself in.
I just want to make sure that by doing this, we don't fulfill our charge, and then we are unable to go back to an issue that we don't, at this point, know the answer to.
Yeah.
Because similarly, Richard, they could come back from the Board of Education and say, look, we don't like what you guys have, and deny us
No, I
the
get it.
ability to go
Yeah.
forward, and we would still
Anyway.
be together, right?
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what
What the alternative is. I just, at this stage, I think you're either going to go accelerated, or if you get a different opinion, you're going to set up a warning article that I hope is very clear, that allows Vernon out of the Union High School District and allows an alternative. It's not a MUD, but it's a conventional unified union district.
Can I have clarity on what you were all laughing at when I said, but when does it stop? I am serious about that question. When do we, as my great stew analogy of putting in the spices and changing and listening to people and doing that, what's the stop? This is the recipe, this is what we're voting on.
I think, again, I think when we submit this, we're going to get back and forth from the AOE, and then we're going to need to have Chris Leopold work with us on any revisions from the AOE. May 17th is really the time the state board is going to say, we accept your articles.
So when we go out to the community forums and we talk to the communities, we can't take in any more changes?
No.
It's absolutely done.
Well, I think by next week, you're going to know whether you're going for accelerated or anything different. And that's what we're presenting to the communities. And I think it's important to present. We've looked at the other alternatives.
But that's not the question. The stew has various things in the article. So say we go out and somebody says, you know, I really think that you should have, which is what Brattleboro already did, for example, in the Leadership Council. You should have 3 members from Brattleboro, or you should have, actually they didn't say that, they said they wanted 9 instead of 8. So that was part, in my mind, that was part of the stew making process, that we got input from them and we changed it. Changing, like you're saying, is changing from making stew to, I don't know, soup or something, is way off into a different thing. So we're clear on that. So how, the community forums at that point are no longer getting any input on any changes. The
I
community
think it's
forums
mostly giving information.
are strictly explaining what it is.
And then the community votes according to how they see fit.
I just want to be clear on the process.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, you can't keep getting input to change this at a certain point.
This is Brattleboro.
Well,
I'd like to bring up the the board meeting's last concern is that we sat down and everybody reviewed the August 28th draft. We got the May 3rd draft today. I sent it to our board, so the board has not gotten a chance to get their legal counsel on now what's going to be the May 5th draft, and that is part of the process to get review and comment from the board, from the boards. And I don't, Brattleboro maybe reviewed the May 3rd draft.
I gave 15 copies to Paul.
I know, but nobody had it beforehand, and so, and we asked Paul, and Paul ended up like saying, you know, well, let's just do the April 28th, which is what everybody had reviewed and had.
Yeah,
We didn't have a chance to review it ahead of time either, really.
It wasn't sent to our board. I sent it to the board today and said, I think these are the new draft
Right.
articles, but then there was a back and forth, and the decision was made to do that.
So all of the boards will never see will never approve a final draft. The idea of the
Review and comment.
Yeah, so I have to say that this draft is very similar to the other draft. I'm very comfortable. We've adjusted the things, I think, and I certainly may be missing something, but I think for the things that have been of concern, we have adjusted them as we've gone on. If
And
that's,
we've been taking it to our board all the time.
Yeah.
We have to.
So what's very important is that you guys understand your boards and that you bring that feedback and that your understanding of what is important to them to this process. And it seems to me that has been happening.
haven't gotten Dummerston's opinion tonight. I can give you several instances where you haven't gotten the Dummerston board's.
Thank you, Jody.
Excuse me.
We're in the middle of a conversation,
I know you
Jody.
are, but we need to have Dummerston's input.
Thank you.
I think you're probably correct that most of the things that were glaringly different, I really looked at this pretty much today as we sat down. So my gut says you're right. I'm just not comfortable as if we're supposed to transmit to boards the final draft for review and comment, and we have not done that. So how is that going to happen? We're voting before we've done that. And is that really, it says A, you do that, and then B, it goes to the Board of Ed. So that's my concern, and that's the board's concern.
So I think we can have a vote tonight, and if you feel like you still have, so tonight we were really supposed to bring feedback here. If you still don't feel like you've got enough feedback from your board, you should meet with your board before our next meeting. Okay?
Yeah. With the final draft. That's
It will never be a final draft. The
Wow.
final draft that we will vote, that will be voted on, the Board of Ed might make tweaks on May 17th. That's the process. Right?
That's what I was asking, and that is the bottom line. We can only put in what we think, but the final FDA approval of the stew is up there with that.
When we're talking to the Board of Ed.
So it will not come back to us as a board to look at one more time. But it comes back to everybody at the taste test. You vote yes or no.
Yep.
So I'm going to make these adjustments either tomorrow or by Friday. So it'll be a May 6th version that anybody that has a board meeting, including the study committee meeting, will have a copy of.
I would be more comfortable voting after we see the next draft. I get the reason for wanting to put it forward, but it's not a big enough reason in my mind, just to give them the warm fuzzy, because I feel like...
I'm not really talking about the warm fuzzy. I think it's respectful of them, but I also really think they need, if they want us to, we need them to take us seriously.
Yeah.
I really think we owe, can you please wait? There's going to be plenty of time. We know that there's legal opinion that's still on a couple articles. And we can pull those articles out, I think. I would suggest that we do that and perhaps give them a draft. But I would really strongly encourage us to vote so that they can actually look at this seriously.
Have they implied or said that they're not taking us seriously?
Yes,
They
that's
are.
what I was just going to say.
They are taking us seriously. We've been encouraged to have a vote.
But they have implied or said at the Monday meeting on April 25th that I was not at but watched. Donna Russo-Savage actually said at one point, she goes, well, I think you guys are, pretty much too late for the accelerated. She said that at one point.
Yes, she did.
Well, that's not what I've ever heard from Donna.
Well, that's why I think when you're saying that whether they're taking us seriously or not, there was a divergence of opinion in what I saw from the people from the state. She said that she didn't think that we had enough time, that we were really out of time, and then another two people said, but we know you're working on it, and indicated that they were waiting for us to come back. So I think they're kind of waiting for a definite, we're going forward at this point.
Yeah.
Although surely, I'm with Beth. They know we're waiting on this legal stuff from Vernon, and we've waited now for a week and a half. I thought we were going to have it for sure.
I thought it would be right away, and if we had that, I would be more comfortable. It's just, and I think we did make some significant changes tonight that some of the changes we made, I don't know that I would trust that Chris isn't going to change them, because I think he's going to have a different perspective than we do.
But we're only asking him to change a couple things.
But they're important things.
But
right,
the board is still going to have that opportunity to change.
Right. And we could say we're voting on articles, 1, 2, 3. We could make a specific motion.
So we're not necessarily voting on these exact articles, we're just voting to move forward with accelerated.
We could do that.
Because to me, it's different whether you're voting on what we have in front of us with these changes, which I'm not sure that they're going to stick, or are we voting to move forward with accelerated? Those are two different votes.
Right. I mean, it depends on the motion that someone puts forth.
We could make two motions as well, right?
We could.
I think we're at the point where we need to make the motion.
And do we want to hear from the public before we go ahead and do that? Is that
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to open it to the public. Jody and who else? Okay, Jody and then Inez and then Tom.
Well, my first comment was that most of the boards have not seen this new thing that's come through. But my second comment was at the Dummerston meeting tonight, there were some fairly clear things, and I didn't hear them come out of here. One of them was they wanted a vote before closing the school. They wanted to keep their 7th and 8th graders and a vote before that, no changes on school structure. They wanted a different board composition. They wanted to vote on their own representative, which goes back to the 5 and 4. And they were not happy with the appendixes because they didn't agree with a lot of what was in the appendixes. And I haven't heard that tonight. And then there was also a vote taken at the end of the meeting, and I have forgotten what the points were for that vote, but I think...
All those points were.
Huh?
All those points were.
All those points were the 4 points? Okay, that got voted on to bring to the study committee. I think Dummerston is really very, very concerned about this for the reasons that we have talked about for 6 months now. And I think you're making a mistake in rushing this through because I think you're going to lose. And it's torn this district apart, unfortunately, which has been a wonderful, wonderful working supervisory union. And now you've got everybody at odds with everybody else. And I think it's a really big mistake. So I am just encouraging you, and Donna Russo-Savage said just exactly what Jill said, that she thought we were out of time at this point.
She said we were
running out of time with if you watch that video, you know, and I thought she was very good in presenting things. I thought she was much better in presenting things than we've gotten at these study committee meetings. And I have written to her and asked her several questions. She's written to me back, and she will answer those questions probably at the end of the week after the legislature is through, because she's pretty busy with the legislature. And I know people who've got phone calls into her. So, you know, we may get some different answers than you're presenting here. And I think your push is too hard.
Inez?
My observation, just from what I've heard from the beginning of this meeting up until now, is that you've been told that you would be given a legal opinion on whether you could even proceed without Vernon. You haven't received it, and yet at the same time, supposedly the state is making demands that you make a vote without the legal opinion you need to know whether what you're doing is legal. And so I would love for nothing more than for you guys to vote and not follow process, because then we could put a stop to this. But instead, I'm seeing double talk. I'm hearing, oh, we're going to get an opinion. We haven't received it yet. We expect it shortly in a few days. But then I'm also hearing, we've received enough legal advice from someone, whether it's Chris Leopold or the state, that you do need to go forward. These two statements don't make sense. You know, I can't tell you guys what to do, but from an outside observer, everything that I'm seeing is troubling.
Tom?
I'm going to say with sincerity, I want to thank you for the work you have put in, because I know it's been a lot of work. So far, you haven't had to vote. You've been operating by consensus, which has been very sort of centrifugal in bringing you together. When you actually have to vote, you're at a point of conscience, and the pressure to consensus has to yield to what you think is the right way to go. And that may mean that you don't all agree. That's comment one. Comment two is that if this does not fly, figuring out a way to make it fly with or without Vernon is one option. But there are lots of other options that you have available to you and that the law provides for how we can provide for the benefits of consolidation. And I just want to encourage you to be open to a broader array of options than the pressure to just do a merger. There is no room in your process for the kind of feedback that you were talking about, Jill, from the towns. That's the only room for any feedback is a yay or nay vote, period. And that's on a finished product. You will be putting out the word, but it'll be one-way information. That's all I have to say.
Sean Murphy from Guilford. I think one important thing to remember is that whatever comes out, whether you vote tonight or not, the important thing is that all the voters in the 5 towns get to cast a ballot. And I feel that's really the important thing. So whatever way that can be implemented, I think that the vote by all the people is going to be the definitive answer, and I think it's important.
Yeah.
How many people were at your Dummerston meeting today?
7, 8.
8 and 1 by mail. It was a special meeting too. It didn't have, wasn't on a regularly scheduled.
So guys, if there's a motion, I would entertain that. We also need to talk about the petition, the potential petition tonight.
For the school board directors. But I think the pressure of the timing is that we want to release the petitions fairly soon. So people that are interested in running for the board can do it in a timely way. They would need to get their petitions in by May 23rd. So, you know, if we can have them ready for Friday or at least by next Monday. Otherwise, we're cutting into a lot of time that people need to get petitions.
When does Chris Leopold think that he's going to give us an answer?
What's that?
Chris Leopold isn't giving us
An answer to what?
Who's giving us the answer?
Agency of Education.
When are we going to get that?
I'm hoping by Friday, but, you know, I have no influence.
I hear what Beth is saying, and what Richard said, what people in the community say. It's just, there's going forward without really knowing. I mean, I also hear that they would like to have a specific vote from us, but they're not responding to us.
I think as long as we're confident that we can come back, if a decision coming back about Vernon's allows us to reconfigure where we're going, then I don't have a problem with the vote now. But what bothered me, what concerned me was the earlier comment that if that would end our charge, then it would take a whole other group to come back and then have a discussion.
Right.
And if that's not the case, then I'm fine with the vote. And I would actually, for the reasons in part that Ian brought up in terms of being worried about being able to get all this through, then I think if you're worried about timing now, then next week is as much as a week later. So why not do it now?
You go.
So, yeah, this is a good time to give us opinions as to direction to go.
I don't know if we should vote. Quite honestly. Without knowing the legal ramifications of Vernon.
So what about voting, without voting on Article 1?
It doesn't address the consent, does it?
Amy?
I mean, I think the articles are all or nothing.
Well, but it doesn't have to be. Yeah.
What about the distinction made between voting for the articles versus voting for the accelerated merger? Right, that makes a distinction that acknowledges that the articles are under review and will be adjusted as we
Being
go.
seriously considered.
And that allows the state to say, oh, you have decided to do this, and this is the document associated with that, but that we
And
acknowledge.
we're waiting for you to give us the go-ahead.
Right.
Which
That's
will
right, yeah.
pressure them, and that would allow us to get the petition moving.
It would?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we should at least vote to get the petitions set up for people that are interested in running to get those petitions out. And, you know, down the road, if the state board says, you know, you're not ready to do this and you put it off to November, then those petitions get, you know, revised until the fall. But I think in fairness to, I mean, Sean, you made the point that, you know, you're really cutting it to time that people need to get, if you're an at-large, to get 60 signatures, you've got to get them from various communities.
Not very many days.
So if in principle you vote to accept the study committee in the sense of an accelerated merger with the idea of releasing petitions for school board positions, that could probably be the first step.
That's funny, Ron, because what you say sounds infinitely good, but to me it gets stuck on the legality. If I'm concerned about the legality of whether we can vote to go forward without knowing the answer from the AOE on Vernon, then I'm more comfortable just saying that I can vote for yes, and we would like to have, we're serious that we think we're looking this way. Let's have the AOE give us some feedback on the articles, but that doesn't lead me to also saying the petitions therefore go out, because I feel like I can only say yes to petitions if we're saying yes to accelerated. And I don't know if I can say yes to accelerated without knowing what the story is on Vernon. You can never leave, that's the goal.
Doors open.
You can never leave it.
It's the Hotel California.
Plenty of floor room, people, we can all bunk in.
Thank you, Mom, I needed that.
All right, well, let's review the petition language. So that's done. And then if no one puts the motion on the floor, no one puts the motion on the floor. All right. Do you have that language?
Well, it's just a document that essentially it's a petition to get signatures.
Like any
It's
one that we
it's the
do
same
every.
petition that you guys do.
Yeah.
But
But
do we have, but for instance, Brattleboro will have 3 seats
Right.
in this structure, but they're different seats. So, for instance, if I was going to go to run for Brattleboro, I would have to decide which petition I wanted. Do I want the 1 year, the 2 year, or the 3 year? And if Mark was going to run for this board, he would have to make that same decision.
Correct. Same thing we do all the time.
Yes, that's what we
Okay,
do.
well, that's very different than the high school board.
Oh, really?
Because we're all 3-year seats and it doesn't matter.
I'm going to just pass this around.
That would be why I have a 3-year, because nobody else wanted to do it.
yeah, pretty much.
Looking at petition.
That's what we do.
So we don't have to deal with that.
I'm just wondering. I'm not saying it will happen, I'm just wondering what would happen if
We were locked.
nobody petitioned from a single town.
Oh, I thought we were locked in a room.
We call Ricky.
We will no longer be a study committee, so that is not our concern.
Got it.
Well, the way it currently works, doesn't the town,
That is
Appoint
true, well,
someone?
that's happened. That's
or no,
happened.
it would be the town school board that orders somebody, but there is no town school board.
Super board.
That's a good
It's not,
question.
in Guilford, it's not usually a contested, contest.
I hear you.
It's just,
Not in Brattleboro either.
so I just, this increased responsibility and all that, it could be, I'm just wondering.
But I rule the empire.
What would happen though?
You're serving for everybody.
The town.
I've been appointed to the school board more than once.
I have been too.
One time it was by the town school board, one time it was by the select board.
And the statute changed, so now it would be the school board.
Right, but
But the
in
select board
this
approves their
situation,
request.
it would be the school board right now, but going forward, it might not be.
It would
So
be
that
the.
It would be the unified board.
District board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is that way, because that was how I first came on to, was appointed. There was a vacancy and nobody was.
I got Dragoon too.
Can you pass that around, Ricky, when you're done? 'Cause-
This way.
No,
This way.
I have a motion I'd like to make. How's this? You might not like it. That we, the WSESU Study Committee, is that our official title? Respectfully request that the Agency of Education give us their determination on what steps we can take by Monday in order to allow us to move forward. Anybody want to second it?
Monday the 9th?
I second.
It's respectful, Alan.
Oh, no, discussion?
Sounds great.
How does that work? Like, so we make a motion that we request them.
It's just like, it's an official
It's just a-
communication saying
okay.
that we are stuck here
Yeah.
at some level, and that we've been doing our due diligence and we're,
Which tells them that we're seriously waiting on them.
So your motion is, the study committee respectfully requests the AOE give us their determination on, what was it?
I said the Vernon situation, but there might be better
The
wording.
legality of moving forward, given the recent communication from the Vernon School Board.
I like that.
Without
Ding, ding,
resolution.
ding, ding, ding.
You're good at 9:20.
Well
No time. Only after long, the Putney Forest.
Any further discussion?
Did someone second it?
Amy, it's
Yeah, Amy.
seconded. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, is there anything we can do with these, okay, well, you're all looking at the petition.
The at-large position lists that everyone has to be registered Brattleboro voters.
That's just
That's-
one copy.
It's a sample, yeah.
That's the Brattleboro copy.
Yeah, they're,
Well, no, it says at-large here, but then.
yeah, they're just two
And-
different versions.
So the question that remains now is if someone wants to make a motion to say we go forward with the petitions, so that that moves forward. That's whether somebody feels comfortable doing that at this point.
So this petition is being looked at by Christopher Leopold. Barb wrote this petition,
So it
and
hasn't been
she's done a lot of these. So chances are good, if there are any edits, they're going to be quite minor.
Yeah. I trust your opinion.
Was that a motion, Joe?
That's a motion. I'll put it in the form of a motion that I move that we accept the petitions as presented to us today. Or the petition forms as presented.
But that's not what we need. We don't need
Yeah,
to
no,
accept them.
With minor edits.
With minor edits.
With
But what does that mean? We accept them because we're just going to hold on to them? You
No,
want
you're essentially releasing the petitions for people
That's your
to.
motion.
Yeah, motion has to be.
You have to release them, accept them and release them.
Okay, we accept and release. Thank you.
It's like catch and release.
Catch and
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
So if you're releasing them and they're petitions for the accelerated merger, then by the relative principle, doesn't that mean that we're?
That's why I said I have a problem with this part, yeah.
I don't think
Not
so.
necessarily.
No, it just means that we're releasing the petition, so in case we go to the accelerated merger, we can have your petition ready.
Or if you're a modified board, you would have a petition ready.
So if someone went to pick it up, theoretically, they must have some knowledge of this process and say, well, I'm picking up a petition in
Just
case
Well,
it
we
goes forward.
post them at the town hall.
Well, I have a, so this would apply, this same petition would apply to both the accelerated merger or the modified board, if, or the MUD option?
Yeah.
I don't think it would be a MUD, it would be a unified union
Yeah.
board, with the idea that Vernon would have to be released from the union.
Well, maybe a
And that would be the vote that would come in November.
No, I think we'll know by Friday or Monday what direction.
If we opted not to go for the accelerated option and went for the vote in November
Yeah,
instead.
then these we wouldn't, would drop those. In other words, you can release them, but if the board or if this committee or the state board says, you ought to wait till November, these have no bearing then, and you gotta do a new set.
Well, if these were not going to go out until Monday, to the
I need
town clerks.
authorization to get them ready to go. Yeah.
I think we should get these to the clerks.
Well, can that language?
See, if you don't vote on this tonight, you're waiting until next Wednesday, and
But why are we determined, have we determined it's gonna be Wednesday? I don't wanna do it.
Okay, but let's stay
One thing,
focused.
a motion and a
There's a
second table.
motion on the floor, and I'm just, is there any further discussion?
Can we release them to the town clerks under the provision that they're not released to the public until we vote on Wednesday?
then I think
Okay.
it's so
But
late.
they're-
We can
it's
release
there.
them, but that, even if they're released, if we don't, we're gonna do something next week, which they'll become legal documents then.
It's the thing is the release of these, it doesn't commit us to
No.
anything, so there's,
Just
I don't
allows
see a
people
reason
to
not
start
to. It
getting
just
petitions.
It allows the clerks to move forward, it allows potential
People that get
members to
So
move
we could have
forward.
released them in December.
We could have, but the motion's on the table, so is there any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so Chris is going to take a look at them, and then we'll ask Barb to, Barb will be very pleased to move on that. Okay, what else do we need? So, hold on, Tom. I'm going to open it up to everyone. Last week, we agreed that we would send it up to Donna, that report. I'd like us all to go ahead, we're agreeing now and to send it up again. And I think that goes with a paragraph to Donna saying that, with the motion that passed, and saying that the reason we did not vote on the articles was because we were very uncomfortable. We were not confident about our legal standing to move forward on the vote, okay?
Big bold letters in fluorescent colors.
Yes.
So I'll need that motion that passed, so when I revise this, I have that to send.
Okay, so is there anything more that the committee wants to talk about before I open it to the floor?
Just the date.
The date.
We know Chris Leopold can come on May 11th.
That's Wednesday?
During the nights again?
6 o'clock.
Yeah.
This is the night, I mean,
Okay,
wanna miss it.
so I know we are all missing so much. I truly understand the dedication this committee is giving to this process and members of the public who are attending. This has been a huge amount of time in our lives that have been dedicated, and it's not all at the table. I know there's a lot of time that people spend out of these rooms. If this committee passes this report, we will be going up north, and many of us will be attending forums, and that will take a lot of time as well. So I do acknowledge that, but this next meeting is extremely important. So,
That's Wednesday, the 11th?
yeah.
Where?
Time. BOHS, please, so we can see the game. We got 3 or 4 sons on the field.
Will they be, yes?
Sorry, it's not
Is that okay?
BOHS.
Is there any other meetings that night that we have to worry about?
No, well, no board meeting.
And that was the only night that he could do it that week?
We suggested the 12th. He had a commitment. He said he might be able to get out of it, but.
He had another commitment, the 11th, he thinks he can get out of that more easily than he can't get out.
It's the
Or
11th that it was open.
Oh,
12th.
right.
10th.
We do 10.
He can't do the 10th.
All right, so it's the 11th,
It is the 11th.
7 o'clock?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock?
Can we do it in a different room than the last one?
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah, that was a horrible
That was
room. Wait,
horrible.
I think we all acknowledge that that was a bad room.
So I'd have to confirm that the Cusick room is open.
Or get a sound system.
Okay. If the Cusick room is not open, then the location might change. All right?
Go across the field? The field that your kids play?
It is, and last time all I could hear was all the scoring, and I couldn't find a score because my husband wouldn't answer the phone.
All right, guys. It's 9:30, so let's open it up to the public and, yeah.
Brief comment. It is likely that you will not get a definitive answer on the Vernon question.
Is that a statement or a question?
Pardon?
Is that a statement or a question?
That's a statement.
Well, we've
It
been
is-
told we will get an opinion.
I understand, but Vernon has already gotten a legal opinion that is likely not to agree with one that you will get, and, you know, you're going to have to decide what you are going to do with or without absolute definitive. Vernon was pretty clear that they will go to court if need be, and they have had attorneys advising them as well. So I'm just throwing that out there, that it is possible that there is not current law that covers this situation.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, everyone. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second? Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
What is
Just in case people have...
So when will the petition be available? I'm working
Ready for it.
Friday or Monday, I hope.